You have reached another Brevis Talk. I want to say thank you for stopping by, and I appreciate the nice feedback that we have received. If you care to, give us a review at Apple Podcast, and that'll help us to get the word out. And I want to say hello to my friends from Singapore and Germany. I understand we have some listeners there. We are talking about some prison stories as I can remember these things that have happened just a few years ago and many, many years ago. Well, I'm going to tell you one today that really stirs up the emotions within me. It makes me sad, it makes me grieve, it makes me angry, and it breaks my heart. I'll entitle this, The Kid. I met a young man on death row many years ago, actually about 2001, and he arrived at death row at 17 years of age. He was approximately 24, 25 when I met him. Let me describe him for you. 5'3", 220, 25 pounds. He looked like a refrigerator that was sort of cut in half. A very thick individual. He was very receptive to me, very lonely at the prison, and thoroughly institutionalized. He was raised by the prison system, so to speak. What a sad story. I think about this kid, and I think that sometimes he never had a chance. His mother didn't want him, and so when she found out that she was pregnant with him, she took as much meth as she could, trying to abort him with a overdose of drugs. Well, he was born. His dad, his biological father, left the scene early, and his mother was a small-town crook, a hustler, a drug user, and everything that goes along with that. She taught him early how to distract people so that she could steal and shoplift. By the time he was 6 years of age, he learned how to fake a seizure. He would get on the floor sometimes, and he would induce vomiting and draw a crowd while his mother, as he distracted them, his mother was able to make off with maybe a meal or something that could be sold later and get a drug high. At 13 years of age, in her warped mind, she said, "Son, you're going to do drugs. I know you're going to do drugs, and I want you to know you're wasting your time with marijuana and some of these other ones. Heroin is the good stuff." And so she put a needle in his vein at 13 years of age and introduced him to heroin. That's how warped this woman was. Another interesting side note about her, I've never heard this before, but she was covered with tattoos, but not only covered with tattoos, here's the point I'm wanting to make. She had her gums tattooed. Yes, inside her mouth, her gums had tattoos on them. I've never heard that before. The only constant that he had in life that displayed love and kindness was his grandmother, Mamaw. He did not see Mamaw very often because he and his mother lived on the streets, and because they were thieves, they had to move around and stay ahead of the law. He befriended a man who was a drug salesman, and he used the drugs that this man had for him to sell. And when the money didn't come forward, the man said, "You've got till 5 o'clock today, and I'll have my money or I'll have your life." Well, not knowing what to do, he went into a pawn shop with a gun with the intent of robbing the place. A customer charged him from one side, and a wrestling match over the gun ensued, and the customer was killed. This young man arrived on death row at 18 years of age, having done the crime at 17 years of age. I would say that as I had met him, he was thoroughly institutionalized. The prison had changed him. They had made his decisions. They told him what to eat. They told him when to eat. They told him what to do and when to do it. And so he adapted to that system. And when I met him, he was a lonely man. He was not a spiritual man. He was someone who had had to fight because of his small stature, and fight he could. Other inmates told me that he had defeated a lot of different inmates who were much, much larger than him. He fought off rape, attempted rape, and that was the reason for most of the fights that he had, is the attempts that were made to rape him. Horrible, horrible situation. Well, I met him and I began to strike up a conversation with him and befriend him. And he was curious and intrigued that I would come into prisons, and I'd never been to prison. We talked a lot about life. We talked about what he said was a normal life. Tell me about your life. I have not had a normal life. And so we visited, and I shared the gospel with him, and he made a promise to me that he's not kept yet, and I still hold him to this. He said, one day I'm going to read the Bible through from Genesis to Revelation. I'm going to do that. And he has not done that thus far. Well, he got off death row. In 2003, the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the death penalty for anyone under 18 years of age. That case, if you need to look it up, is Roper v. Simmons out of Missouri. And he was taken to a prison many, many miles from me. I have kept up with him. The kid really never had a chance. I spoke with his mother. She had gone to prison, and a few years after him getting off death row, we visited by phone several times. She was defensive. She would not take any blame for his behavior, for his lifestyle. She said we were simply two people trying to survive. I believe she was a woman without a conscience. She died a few years later of liver disease, alone, in a nursing home. But she denied that she was the cause, or a cause, for her son's. What a sad, sad thing that not only are there absent parents in this life, but there are those who are despicable and horrible, horrible examples of parents. He fights a battle within himself as he talks to me. He hates his mother, and then he takes it back. He said, I'm so angry at her, and I hate her. And then he'll say in the next breath, no, she's my mother. I love her. She did the best she could. She just did not know how to raise a child. And I continue to witness to him, and he has assured me that if he became a Christian and he became someone meek and mild and humble, that someone in the prison system would run over him. He said it's a dog-eat-dog world. You've got to roar like a lion and never show anyone that you are afraid, because if you do, that'll be the first and perhaps even the last mistake that you have made. I keep contact with him. I pray for him. I am in hopes that one day he'll turn to faith in Jesus Christ. He says that I am like a father to him. I love him. I tell him I love him. And after several years, he has begun to tell me that he loves me. I wish you'd pray for him. Just know him as the kid. I'm not going to give his name here, but just know him as the kid who never had a chance. If you had a good upbringing, be grateful. I hope that you will say to the Lord, thank you for a mom, thank you for a dad. I know your parents weren't perfect, none are. But thank God for the home structure. Thank God for your grandparents, your siblings. And thank God that you were not raised on the streets by a lying thief of a mother who was so callous and misdirected that she would introduce heroin into your body at the age of 13. If you don't understand these things, thank God that you don't understand them. Well, I'm grateful for parents. I'm grateful for grandparents. And I'm grateful that I don't know the life that the kid knew. The kid has his own set of rules, his own code, if you will. He's honest. He's never lied to me as far as I know. He's told me some horrible things. And so there is that level of integrity. But pray that God would humble him. Pray that God would put a thirst and a hunger in his life, that he would see his need of Jesus Christ. He knows the gospel. As far as the presentation of the gospel, it's been given to him. I have loved him. I have shared with him. Others have shared with him. But he has not come to faith in Christ. I hope before my days are over that I'll hear a message that tells me that he has received the good news of Jesus Christ. I'm not going to give up on him. I told him one time, I'm going to chase you to the edge of hell, but I can't go with you. Well, it's a sad, sad day. And why do I have a feeling that the kid is not the only kid in America? Maybe in your community, there's someone who is being raised like this. I wish you'd pray for the kid and thank God for what he has granted you. If you had parents, if you had a roof over your head, my friend, you are very, very wealthy.